Alright, so tonight I'm going to talk about turbo Coldside piping. I've got two pieces of vibrant 3.5 inch piping right here, aluminum 065 wall. First things first, usually you cut it, fit it, whatever, do what you got to do, but when you're ready to weld it, this is what you do. You take it, and I always take just the edge off, because when you cut it, the bandsaw leaves burrs. So I always hit it with my belt sander, take the edge off, and get you a nice flat surface, just like this. Now that both of these surfaces are flat, you want to ream the inside to get rid of the burr on the inside with one of these. So now there's nothing on the inside to get into your turbo piping system or your engine, or to cut your finger off, or to give you a paper cut. It's all nice and smooth now. Boom. Nice tight joint. That's what you want to weld. You don't want to weld something that's like this. You don't want to weld something that's all cattywampus. You want to weld this right here. So now that our pipe's ready to weld, or at least ready to go over to the weld table, I'll show you how I set my welder up. I'll show you the settings, the amperages, the gas flow, everything. Alright, so I'm going to be using my AHP. It's a AlphaTig 200X right here. The settings are going to be the following. If I'm welding 065 wall aluminum, I like to keep it right at 80-ish because it's really easy to burn through the thin stuff. My frequency is going to be at 60. When you're welding thin stuff, you can turn it up a little bit, but then sometimes it just, the higher the frequency, the more tighter your arc's going to be. Sometimes a tight arc is going to melt through too quick. But if you got too small or too wide of an arc, you're not going to get the penetration you want. The balance, I turned it down to like just under 35 because with the vibrant stuff, it's really clean. You're not going to get a bunch of junk in your puddle. But if you're welding some dirty stuff, you're going to crank your balance up. So usually to get the ball on the tip like you want for welding, this is what you want for welding. This is what you want your tungsten to look like. You'll sharpen your tungsten to just a small point. You'll crank this balance way up to 80%. You'll get a thick piece of aluminum just like this. You'll hold your torch like this, just right straight from it, and then you'll press the gas, or you'll press the pedal and start basically like you're gonna weld. You'll press it until you see, you'll watch the tungsten, it'll start to ball, then you let off the pedal, and then it looks like this. That's what you want when you're welding aluminum. Also, I have a number 8 cup on here. You can't see the 8 because it's got crud all over it. Number 8 cup, so the number 8 cup, you double the number for the gas flow. So I'm flowing 16 CFH of gas through this. I'm running a 2% lanthanated, or however you say that, tungsten in this. That's what I usually prefer for aluminum. And I'm going to be using 16th inch rod. This is 16th of an inch. A lot of people use this 1/8 inch rod, but if I'm welding aluminum Coldside piping, that stuff's way too thick. You got to get it way too hot. Now if I'm welding an intercooler, some 1/8 inch stuff, 1/4 inch aluminum, this is what you want to use. But if you're welding 065 wall pipe, 16th of an inch is what you want to use. And this is 53/56. This is what you really want to use. This stuff welds smooth. So now we're going to clean the pipe. So now that you got your welder on, your pipe fit is good, you got a flat surface, there's no burrs anywhere, you got your welder set up, got your tungsten nice and balled up, your gas flow set, you're going to take a brand new clean rag and non-chlorinated cleaner, and you need to get this stuff as clean as you can. Because this pipe looks clean, but trust me, it's very dirty. Look how dirty that one joint was. you flip it over. Don't use the dirty part of the rag again. Flip it over, use this side, then clean this string. So now, both these joints, wipe down clean. Those are ready to tack. Now, you're gonna take your rod, open this up. Remember, don't use the dirty part. Open it up to where it's clean, wipe the rod down. Because the rod is dirty, very dirty. That's how dirty. Now after you clean your joints, you might have a little bit of this rag left on there. Take a clean stainless brush and get all the leftover rag pieces off. You don't have to scuff the pipe or make it ugly or anything, but just lightly brush it to get all of the rag pieces off of it. Now aluminum's really tricky. When you go to tack it, you got to make sure your fit's tight or it's going to just blow through it. But if you got your fit right, you can tack it without using rod. Just want to make sure you push on it really hard. And you got to start slow with aluminum, because if you start too hot, start too fast, it's not going to be happy. Now we got two nice tacks. Now we can weld our piece. I always like to get a nice heavy piece to kind of stick in this, to keep this piece from moving while I'm trying to weld it. And I always like to have something nice and sturdy to rest my hand on, so I can get a nice range of motion. Now a lot of people, when they first start out, if you lean on your forearms, it helps keep your hand steady. But as you get better at welding, you can take the pressure off of your arms and really get a far range of motion. The further range of motion means the longer the beads. The longer the beads means the less you have to start and stop. The less start and stops you have, the better your whole joint's gonna look. So now I'm gonna try to weld this. Nice looking bead. See how I wasn't moving super fast, I wasn't moving real jerky. You just slowly move and articulate the torque as you go. You really want, with aluminum, you want to make sure you get a good puddle going before you move. Then you don't want your rod sticking in there, and then you just push everything and screw everything up, dip your tungsten, screws you all up. you're stopping with aluminum too, you gotta be real slow off the pedal, because if you're too fast off the pedal, it'll suck a crater, put a big dimple in the end of the weld. That was another nice smooth one. And as you can see, these welds, I guess you might not be able to see them that well, but they're getting nice penetration too. So I'm really letting the weld set, the puddle set down in there before I dab my rod. You see how flat that is? It's got just enough rod to make it nice and flat. Now, that's for butt welds. When you're welding a flange or something like that, you're gonna use a little more amps. The same technique. You gotta get a good puddle going before you move. Then you dip, move, dip, move, dip, move. You kind of got to get a rhythm going, because if not, you're not going to be able to keep the same width here. You're going to have big humps and lumps, and you're going to have dipping your tungsten because you're going to dip at the wrong time, and it'll just be all bad. So now I'm going to weld a flange for you guys. I got a piece of 3" over here, some scrap 3". Got a nice vibrant flange here that we had on the shelf. It's not doing anything, but I don't want to waste it. But if I need it, I can always cut it off and use it again. Even though this is new out of the bag, you still want to clean it. Now, shockingly, it's still not that dirty. Even though it's new out of the bag, but it still had dirt on it. Even though it's not as much as I honestly expected. Get your pipe in there nice and good. Throw a couple tacks on it. Well, first I need to clean this side of this pipe. See, this has this lip in here for you to set the pipe down in. So you're basically welding a lap joint, is what I would call it. I don't know what the technical term is, but I'd call this a lap joint, where it's overlapping. So you got two pieces together, you got one on top of the other, you're gonna need a little bit more amperage. So I'm gonna crank this thing up to 95 amps. So we were at 81, now we're at 95. I'm gonna put a couple tacks on this thing. Again, I need to set something inside of this so it's not trying to roll away while I'm welding it. Before you weld, I like to take this and droop it over my leg, so as I'm welding, this isn't over here trying to yank my torch out of the way. Now, always when you sit down before you start to weld, make sure you're going to be comfortable where you're going to be welding. I always like to have the stuff real close to me. I like to be right close and personal with it. I always like to have a big block to really get some articulation. now when you're welding a flange, you almost weld, so your joint's right here, you're almost melting half of this flange onto the pipe. I don't know if you can see that. See how much of the flange, see how much I'm cutting into the flange there? You're not just welding the pipe to the flange, you're welding the pipe and flange together. You're melting part of this flange right here to the pipe and adding rod to it. When I first started welding, I used to try to get my puddle started on the pipe and then add enough rod to get it to jump to the flange. You don't want to do that. You want to melt the flange into the pipe and get a puddle going before you ever start to add rod. So now I'm going to try to do a full range of motion here. See how far I can get. And of course, as you're welding, you're always watching the puddle. If it's too hot, you back off the pedal a little bit. If it's too cold, you just add some more heat. You throttle down. Space my dabs out a little more that time, just to really get stacking dimes. So this one's more consistent. I was hotter there. I didn't really variate on my pedal much. It actually looks, I think, better. And this one's got the big dab look where you throttle on and off and on and off to try to get big dabs. But everybody's got what they like. Also, when I'm welding a flange, I always try to go the same way all the way around the flange. I don't want to weld this way, then flip it over and weld this way to where you got two welds going together. I try to keep everything welding the same way the whole time. It really makes it look a lot better. Try to finish welding this thing out. Welded. So that's all I got for you for aluminum welding. I'll do another video on welding thicker aluminum. I'll do a video on welding stainless, chromoly. This is just the start of them. This was the first one that I thought I could do. Pretty simple. I had some scrap pieces laying around. I think they look pretty good. But if you got any questions, just comment on the video or comment on the post. This is gonna be pretty much all I post. I'm gonna post welding, cutting tricks, just pretty much anything fab related you can think of. I'm gonna post it. If there's anything specific anybody wants to hear, shoot me a message and I'll do it. Thanks.
Gotta give a special thanks to our boys over at Hustle Motorsports and Endless Performance. Love you guys. Thanks for all the support. They were some of our first subscribers. And also Dylan over at Clutch Media. He's always been there for us, and he still helps supporting us today. So thanks, guys.